Modern Fiction by Virginia Woolf. While she is best known for her novels, especially Mrs. Dalloway in 1925 and To the Lighthouse 1927, Woolf also wrote pioneering essays for artistic theory, literary history, women's writings, and the politics of power. A fine stylist, she experimented with several forms of biographical writing, composed painterly short fictions, and sent to her friends and family a lifetime of brilliant letters. Virginia Woolf was best known for her novels Mrs. Dalloway and To the Lighthouse. Don't forget those names: Mrs. Dalloway, 1925, and To the Lighthouse, 1927. Some of her notable works, as we discussed: Mrs. Dalloway, Orlando, To the Lighthouse, A Room of One's Own, The Common Reader, Jacob's Room, The Waves, Three Guineas, Modern Fiction, The Years. Jacob's Room was published in 1922, Orlando in 1928, and The Waves 1931. Her most famous essay was A Room of One's Own. It was in 1929. Woolf had framed experience in terms of positions even while she longed for a holistic state beyond binary divisions, the perpetual marriage of granite and rainbow. Woolf describes in her essay The New Biography, typified her approach during the 1930s to individual works and to a balance between writing works of fact and of imagination. Even before finishing The Waves, she began compiling a scrapbook of clippings illustrating the horrors of war, the threat of fascism, and the oppression of women, the discrimination against women that Woolf had discussed in A Room of One's Own, and Professions for Women inspired her to plan a book that would trace the story of a fictional family named Pagito and explain the social conditions affecting family members over a period of time. The movement and style influenced Virginia Woolf is modernism. Don't forget it, modernism. That's why we have the topic here, modern fiction. In the essay Modern Fiction, Virginia Woolf criticizes H.G. Wells, Arnold Bennett, and John Galsworthy, and mentions praises Thomas Hardy, Joseph Conrad, William Henry Hudson, James Joyce, and Anton Chekhov. Virginia Woolf's modern fiction describes how modern fictional writers and authors should write what inspires them and not to follow any special method. She believed that writers are constrained by the publishing business, by what society believes literature should look like, and what society has dictated how literature should be written. Woolf believed it is a writer's job to write the complexities in life, the unknown, not the important things. Modern fiction is one of the most effective seminar essays in criticism, which makes a clear break of modern fiction from the Victorian novel. She first traces the progress of the novel from its beginning in the 18th century, but she traces it on basis of the philosophy of evaluation in general. According to her, the earliest novelists really did what they actually could within their limited means. With their simple tools and primitive materials, it might be said Fielding did not and Jane Austen even better. Virginia Woolf says of criticism, life escapes, and perhaps without life nothing else is worthwhile. It is a confession of vagueness to have to make use of such a figure as this, but we scarcely better the matter by speaking, as critics are prone to do, of reality. Admitting the vagueness which afflicts all criticism of novels, let us hazard the opinion that for us at this moment the form of fiction most in vague more often misses than secures the thing we seek. Whether call it life or spirit, truth or reality, this the essential thing has moved off or on and refuses to be contained any longer in such ill fitting vestment as we provide. Modern fiction. T.S. Eliot says, or according to T.S. Eliot, literature is like everything else, a process which makes the present. This is why it does not just improve, it always keeps changing. Its material is not same. Mrs. Woolf agrees with Eliot on this point and says, we do not come to write better. We only keep on moving now a little in this direction, now in that, but with a circular motion. Virginia Woolf says it's for the historian of literature to judge whether the modern novel has really progressed from its early babblings. As a critic, she naturally upholds her right to judge the past with the depth as well as doubt. She criticizes M.G. Wells, Arnold Bennett, John Galsworthy of writing about unimportant things and called them materialist. Why do they write the unimportant things according to Virginia Woolf? According to Virginia Woolf, they put life into their novels. They are mainly concerned with the body, not the soul of the novel. This is particularly because they are all materialist and are concerned with the fixities, not with movements. But Mr. Bennet is perhaps the worst culprit of the three, inasmuch as he is by far the best workman. He can make a book so well constructed in its craftsmanship that is difficult even for expecting critics to see, through which think or a crevice decay can creep in. Being a kind of postmodernism, Mrs. Woolf would like the writer to leave the room in his room. In her opinion, there is nothing in a well constructed novel worth preserving for the prosperity. She suggests that it would be better for literature to turn their backs on them so it can move forward for better or worse. While Woolf criticizes these three authors, she prizes. In Woolf's opinion, there is nothing in a well constructed novel worth preserving for the prosperity. She suggests that it would be better for literature to turn their backs on them so it can move forward for better or worse. While Woolf criticizes these three authors, she prizes several other authors for their innovation. This group of writers she names spiritualists and include James Joyce, who Woolf says writers both interest and move him. Woolf wanted writers to focus on the awkwardness of life and craved originality in their work. Her overall hope was to inspire modern fiction writers to write what interested them, whatever it may lead. As a typical modern novelist and critic, Mrs. Woolf advises the modern novelist to look within and see what life is like. Mind receives a crowd of impressions, trivial, fantastic or engraved with the sharpness of steel. So she doesn't like lifelike novels, nor in the tyrant plot, nor in the conventional comedy or love interest. In life like this, must novel be like this? She asks and then adds, look within and life. It seems is very far being. Like this, life is not a series of jig lamps symmetrically arranged. Life is a luminous halo, a semi transparent envelope surrounding us from the beginning of the consciousness to the end. My dear students, please underline these sentences, very important lines. Mrs. Woolf makes it clear that the objective of the writer in his or her creation is to look within and life as a whole. The traditionalism or materialism do not capture at that moment. Thus, to trust upon life, a writer is free and he could write what he chose. Woolf speaks of criticism as being vague rather than concrete. In her criticism within modern fiction of H.G. Wells, for instance, she is vague in what is wrong with writings but focuses more on the abstract ideas or ideals for his fiction rather his work. Woolf's body of essays offer criticism on a variety and diverse collection of literature in her unsystematic method. Mr. James Joyce is most notable or noteworthy from that of their predecessors, young writers within his attempt to come closer to life and to preserve more sincerely and exactly what interests and moves them. And in doing so, they must discard most of conventions which are commonly observed by the novelist. She prizes Thomas Hardy, Joseph Conrad, William Henry Hudson, James Joyce, and Anton Chekhov. As a critic, her writing and criticism is often done by intuition and feeling rather than by a scientific, analytical, and systematic method. Virginia Woolf says, life escapes and perhaps life nothing else is worthwhile. It is a confession of vagueness. It has to make use of such a figure in our words. But here in quotation, it is used in quotation, is used. Life for Virginia Woolf is not fixed, but a changing process. Life is being changed. It's a changing process. It's a flux, shower of autumn of luminous halo. The human consciousness is a shelter of sensation and impression. It is the duty of a novelist to convey these sensations and impressions. There should be no limitation or conventions. Let us come to the conclusion that this Virginia Woolf is the first theorist of the stream of consciousness. So she says, it is a task of the novelist to convey this varying, this unknown and uncircumscribed spirit of life. So sum up, Virginia Woolf observes that nothing, no method, and experiment, even other wildest is forbidden, but only a falsity and a pretense. The proper stuff of fiction does not exist. Everything is the proper stuff of fiction. Every feeling, every thought, every quality of brain and spirit is drawn upon. Though the novelist of Virginia Woolf have well-knit plot. The novels of Virginia Woolf have well-knit plot, perfect structure and coherence, unlike most of modern psychological novelists belonging to the stream of consciousness. She strongly and significantly points out that the modern novel can grow only if a novelist is free from conventions to write from his or her own vision of life and keeps in the view the changing concept of life as revealed by modern psychology and such other scientific discoveries about the working of human mind or consciousness. Dear students, hope you have understood what is modern fiction? What's the content of modern fiction? Thank you.